It's 9 p.m. on the East Coast of America, and live from the WACA studios, this is Good Night. We begin tonight by tackling some entertainment news. Netflix just released the third season of their hit show, Stranger Things, last weekend, and it debuted to rave reviews. It did not, however, impress the anti-smoking outfit Truth Initiative, who reported that Stranger Things, despite being a show definitely aimed at young adults, had some of the worst depictions of smoking on TV today. It concluded by stating that Netflix, in general, track record with smoking has been less than stellar. Truth launched this study, citing the infamous Surgeon General warning earlier in the decade linking smoking in movies to youth smoking, and urged Netflix to do something about it. Netflix responded by basically saying, "Our bad." In a statement, Netflix said that they're beginning to take smoking into account when appropriately rating their shows. Whether it be TV-14 or PG-13, Netflix says it's getting rid of smoking when shows or films are commissioned. Netflix is now joining the leagues of production companies that have explicit smoking rules and regulations for their films. But don't expect them to get Disney level, though, as they continue to report no tobacco incidents in any of their movies, according to the CDC, despite the fact that old Walt used to smoke a pack a day until Mickey told him to stop. In other news, Disney, the mega studio, released a teaser trailer for its upcoming live-action remake of Mulan, following many of the other live-action films Disney is bringing to life instead of creating new properties. The trailer raised some eyebrows due to its grittiness. Sword swinging and Hun stabbing permeate the trailer, but a keen eye will notice a few other missing things, the first of which being the music. Disney has all but officially confirmed that the remake will be music-less, which means no classics like Reflection and most notably I'll Make a Man Out of You, which will instead appear as instrumentals. But the bigger bummer for a lot of people in the trailer is the lack of Mushu. Mushu, if you remember, was the hot-headed dragon sidekick of Mulan, played by Eddie Murphy. Disney has taken a different approach, favoring the historical and cultural accuracy of the actual Mulan story over remaking the hit film scene, which is pretty cool. Which is also cool is Mulan riding a dragon, but this is certainly wishful thinking. In Oscar news, the Academy has welcomed 842 new members to judge the Oscars every year. The Academy has come under fire in recent years for its lack of diversity as well as other unpopular decisions. But this year's new members come from 59 different countries, and half of them are women, while 29% are people of color, according to CNN. So it would seem their promise to diversify is not just talk, despite the fact that they gave Best Picture to Green Book last year, a film so marred in controversy, you'd be better off giving it to Crash again. Among some of the newly inducted members are singer and star of the Oscar darling A Star is Born, Lady Gaga, as well as Tom Holland, the new Spider-Man, and from the movie Us, Winston Duke. But we couldn't help but notice these are two pretty respected actors like me, so here we are at Good Night, think it's a high time to put my hat in the ring to become an Academy member. So Academy, if you're watching, I know I'm not exactly what you're looking for in terms of diversity right now. I realize that I look like the kind of guy that would vote for Green Book over Moonlight, but if you've been paying attention, and I know you have, you will see that I've proven my acting prowess a number of times on this very program. So it shouldn't really be a conversation. I'll just wait for my letter in the mail. In sports news, the dust is pretty much settled on the NBA free agency, and the Finals MVP, Kawhi Leonard, has decided to pack his bags and move from Toronto to Los Angeles. The only issue for LA basketball is if he's joining the Clippers instead of the big brother Lakers. The two teams, while both being based in LA and both play in the Staples Center, share a rivalry that the Lakers, being one of the best franchises the league has historically dominated, leading to some pretty needless bad blood between the two teams. This bad blood has certainly gotten the attention of the LA-based coffee company Alfred Coffee, who has refused to serve Paul George and Kawhi Leonard because of the move. Frankly, it's hilarious that an LA bickers over which team gets the better players when both teams are looking stacked this year, and LA basketball fans are going to rub it in everyone's face regardless of a Lakers or Clippers win. But what do I know? I'm just a lowly Celtics fan, and we don't do much better than either of those teams did this past year. Now, last week we picked up and commented on the story by Frank Serino, a man who hated the potholes on his street so much that he gave it a birthday party in hopes that the city would notice. After Kansas City news station KCTV5 ran the story and it gained national headlines, the city did in fact come to fix the pothole. They had originally said they would be 3-month wait because of the backlog catalog of holes to fill, but after the popularity of the story, they fixed it the next day along with every pothole on his street. Serino celebrated by throwing the pothole a graduation party with cake and congratulations all around. Serino said the whole incident, it was beyond my wildest imagination. Now, we're not sure if he's talking about the newfound fame or the fact that the city has finally fixed his pothole. Now, this story is all but finished, but while we are researching this story, we were reminded of this amazing picture of Frank Serino staring at the pothole and realized this picture is such a good representation of so many emotions. So we might keep Frank around to give us his thoughts on the news. For example, we were largely all right with the new Mulan remake, but Frank is a Mulan purist. So here he is watching the 2000 trailer for 2020's remake. You can see the original poster in the back, and you can be sure he isn't happy about the lack of Mushu. That'll do it for this week's edition of the news. We'll kick it over to Lucy Burdge with This Week in Music History, and when we come back, we'll be tackling the week's biggest topics on trending on Twitter, in addition to an interview with Steve Allison of the Ride of the Fallen Seven. Stick around right here on Good Night.
This is Lucy Burdge with Good Nights This Week in Music History. We begin in 1954 when a 19-year-old Elvis Presley signed a recording contract with Sun Records and gave in his notice at his job at the Crown Electric Company. In 1958, Johnny Cash signed with Columbia Records. In 1963, the Rolling Stones made their UK TV debut when they appeared on Thank Your Lucky Stars. In 1964, the Animals went to #1 on the UK singles chart with The House of the Rising Sun, recorded in one take. Great song. In 1968, Eric Clapton announced that Cream would break up after their current tour. In 1969, George Harrison recorded his new song, Here Comes the Sun, with only 2 other Beatles, Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr, at Abbey Road in London. Also in 1969, Space Oddity by David Bowie was released in the UK for the first time. In 1971, the Bruce Springsteen Band opened for Humble Pie at the Sunshine Inn in Asbury Park, New Jersey, a favorite place of mine. In 1979, Chuck Berry was sentenced to 5 months in jail after being found guilty of tax evasion. In 1984, Bruce Springsteen went to #1 on the US album chart with Born in the USA. In 2009, Michael Jackson's family and friends said goodbye to him during a memorial service held at the Staples Center in Los Angeles. Also in 2009, the Black Eyed Peas song I Got a Feelin' started a 14-week run at #1 on the US singles chart. And in 2011, 50 Cent filed for bankruptcy. This has been Lucy Burdge with Good Nights This Week in Music History. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Lucille Burdge for both.
Tonight, we're kicking off another segment of Trending on Twitter. We're joined here in studio by, in some circles, a very famous stage actor, Nick Fetherston. Good evening, Nick. Thanks for joining us here on Good Night.
Well, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here. We're talking about the top things trending on Twitter today. Did you know that today is National Video Game Day?
I actually did not, no.
Knowing a lot about you and your video game history, what are your thoughts on National Video Game Day?
I think it's a cool thing to have around. I mean, I've always seen video games as art. You know, I think they're just as much art as like a movie or a painting is. It's just a different way of experiencing it, and I don't know how new National Video Game Day is, but I think it's about time if it is a rather new thing.
About time? Yeah. It's a lot different than when the video games when I was a kid, and Pong was the hottest game today. What's the hottest video game out there right now, you think? Fortnite?
No, Fortnite's starting to kind of die. Actually, Minecraft is the thing it's coming back. That was a big couple years ago, but in recent months, it started to kind of climb back up again.
Do you think that we'll be celebrating the 25th and the 50th year of National Video Game Day in the near future, or do you think there'll be something that's going to die out in popularity?
No, I think video games are on the rise, personally.
Still on the rise?
Still on the rise, yeah.
Okay.
Different forms than maybe in recent years, but certainly on the rise.
Another hot topic on Twitter the last couple days is Ariel, the Disney film for Little Mermaid. Any thoughts on that?
I think it's a great casting choice, based purely on representation. Disney, in history, has never really had the great representation of cultures that it kind of desperately needs. I know there's a lot of people out there that are up in arms about it, but to that I just say it's a mermaid. Like, get over it, guys. Like, it's.
Is it real controversy, or is it a faux controversy that you see now on social media? I mean, do you really think people are offended?
Yes, because unfortunately I think that is the kind of society that we live in, that people are actually offended by this. You got the extremes of like, oh, if it doesn't represent me right here, right now, then it's a stance against me, even though there's been so much white representation, arguably too much in Disney throughout pretty much all of their history. And I think to have this in their upcoming movie, it's going to give many little kids someone to look up to and identify with.
That's a good point. We talked a little bit about earlier in the news that Disney's not creating new material, they're just redoing all of their material in live action. Your thoughts on that?
I think it's kind of a cheap way to get money. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say that I haven't been enjoying some of the stuff they've been putting out. Aladdin came out recently. I thoroughly enjoyed that, but I feel like I would have also preferred a new movie. Like, everyone's super excited about The Lion King coming out. I could not be more like whatever. Like, I love The Lion King, but I'm not like dying to see it again, but with just actual lions. And they're not even actual lions.
I don't know. Disney's has done a pretty good job over the last 50 years. They just re-release everything and they make more money out of it. So.
Oh yeah, certainly. No, I mean it works. That's why they're doing it. And they own everyone. Sooner or later they'll own your show too.
So Ariel's a controversial pick. Do you see any other controversial picks coming out of it?
Not particularly. I don't know if it's rumored or confirmed, but Melissa McCarthy is Ursula, I believe.
Oh, really?
The antagonist of the movie.
Good pick?
If that's true, I think it's a pretty good pick. I saw a funny one on Twitter a couple days ago, Guy Fieri as Ursula. That'd be kind of funny. Gender bent. And
that could work.
I could see it working.
That could work. That could be good. All right, Connor, back in the studio. Nick will have some good things to say about this. The next one, dumb things my parents said. You probably have a good this on good authority. Any things your parents ever said over the years that was dumb? I can't think that there would be.
Of course not. Of course not. No.
Toys R Us is now a museum. I think that was
a good one. You were always like, we'll go to the toy museum. It was just a Toys R Us, but you can't touch anything and you can't buy anything because it's a museum. But it got me to shut up because I could go look at stuff. But
what other dumb things did your parents say?
We were joking about this before the show on don't turn the lights on in the car while it's driving or else you'll get a ticket. That's not real. I
think it's still real.
That's not a law.
It's your mother's law, I think. Yeah.
Mother's law. Just say you don't want it on in that case.
But all said, if those are the two dumbest things that your parents said over the years, I mean, they must have said other stuff.
Oh, certainly. But
I remember the infamous line, "Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about." But.
well, there's that. But, do I really want to have all the stuff that I think that you guys said was dumb on record? That's the real...
It's on record already, so
that's
feel
good.
free to say.
I think I'm good.
You think you're
I
good.
think I'm good.
All right. The other top thing trending on Twitter, Connor back in the studio, is earthquake. You lived in California for a short time, and hopefully maybe during your acting career we'll move back to California. What are your thoughts on the earthquakes?
Well, I certainly hope that everyone and their loved ones, stay safe. Earthquakes are nothing to really laugh about. I've never personally experienced one, at least not to my memory. You mentioned that we lived in California. That was when I was 5, so I don't have the clearest memory of everything that happened there, but to the best of my knowledge, we never experienced any earthquakes.
They've talked about for years of California maybe falling into the ocean. How realistic is that?
I don't see that happening at all. Again, I'm not much of a scientist, but I don't really think that an earthquake that could happen in any recent time will be able enough to split an entire state off from the continent.
All right, what is a millennial's take on the top things trending on Twitter? Talking to an older man now. I mean, is Twitter here to stay? Is Twitter here? Is it gonna, or is it gonna go the way Facebook has, and only your parents look at Facebook now, or is Twitter still going to be viable going forward?
I still look at Facebook, but I see Twitter staying around for a good couple more years. But it's been around for a while now, and
it's an angry place.
It's certainly an angry place, and I feel like that is maybe the reason why some people are going to start seeking alternatives soon.
The way people talk to one another on Twitter is not the way that I think that most people would talk to people face to face.
Oh, no, nobody has the backbone to be able to talk to people. You can tell how spineless and weak a person is. I don't mean to get super controversial on your show, but you can tell how spineless and weak a person is by how they talk on Twitter. The angrier they talk on Twitter, the more sheepish and not backbone they are in real life.
Really?
Oh, 100%.
Give me an example,
Well, the President of the United States, number one.
Okay. You're not a big fan of Mr. Trump?
Well, no, not necessarily.
Do you think it's appropriate that the leader of the free world communicates on Twitter?
I think it is appropriate that he can be able to use Twitter. I do not think that the way that he uses it is at all appropriate. I have seen people who I go to school with. I'm only in college, but I've seen college students use Twitter more eloquently and appropriately than Donald Trump has used Twitter.
And why do you think he does it?
I think he does it to get attention. He does it, partially I think he does genuinely believe all the things that he tweets. I've heard people say that he doesn't believe the things that he tweets and he just is trying to stir the pot. I think he does believe everything he tweets, but to an extent I think sensationalizes it a little bit to get attention.
You can tell when he tweets and when his staff tweets, though.
Yes.
Because his staff tweets for him. I don't think a lot of people realize that, but I know that as a fact that his staff tweets for him. But you can tell when he tweets because he'll misspell a word.
He'll misspell a word. But even though his staff does tweet, he does get direct input and probably final say over everything.
Now, he's not the first president to tweet. Barack Obama was.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, no.
But it's a totally different way of communication.
Yes, there is different ways of communicating through everything. I mean, even just to go by letters, the old times of doing it. You could write a nice letter or you could write a bad letter with horrible grammar and you can say horrible things. What some people don't understand is that Twitter is just a more direct and instant way of communicating with people.
Right. I think it can be an effective tool for a president or an elected official to communicate. I sometimes just wish that they would take his phone away from him, but
I do too.
They're never going to do that.
Yeah, you mentioned it's a effective way to meet to the people. It's a more of a commoner's approach. Pretty much everyone these days, the average American, the average person in the world has some sort of device that can access Twitter, and to have the person in power communicating in the way that they would is interesting and cool. To young people, it seems to put it in a term from that you would understand, hip and
Okay.
cool.
That's a shot at an old man right there, but that's okay. Where do you see Twitter in 5-10 years? I mean, I think I love Twitter. But I think it's also controversial. I think it's getting to be a little bit too controversial. Where's the line with Twitter, you think? There's a lot of interest. There's porn on Twitter. There's cursing on Twitter. There's hate speech on Twitter. I think they've already crossed the line myself. But where do you see it being in 5 years?
Well, you mentioned porn and hate speech. It's the internet. That's going to be everywhere on the internet. Like no matter where you go, there's porn on Facebook. There's hate speech on Instagram.
Right.
That's just the nature of the internet. In 5 to 10 years, I still see Twitter being around, maybe not as widely used, and given the shifts, I think, in social behavior in recent years, I see Twitter being home to certain opinions and maybe certain other opinions shifting over to another platform.
What do you use Twitter for?
I really don't use Twitter all that much. I don't really tweet that much. I've been meaning to start. I actually still use Facebook, and my main social media that I use is Instagram and Snapchat. Basically, what I just use Twitter for is to just see what is being talked about, like what's trending. I can't say that I don't get a good laugh out of checking Twitter and seeing what Donald Trump is talking about. Good laugh or a good heart attack. It depends on the day. But.
No, that's a surprise that you actually follow the president on Twitter.
Oh, I don't follow him. I won't give him the satisfaction. But I do check to see what he's up to.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this week's of What's Trending on Twitter. You know him. That's Nick Fetherston. Thanks for joining us, Nick. And we'll be right back here on Good Night with an important interview with Steve Allison from the Fallen Seven. Stick around right here on Good Night. We're back here on Good Night. Tonight, unfortunately, I think we're going to have kind of an emotional interview because it's an honor to be joined on the phone by Steve Allison. He is one of the organizers of the 90-mile ride for the Fallen Seven. Now, you're familiar, unfortunately, with the Fallen Seven, the terrible accident up in New Hampshire by an undocumented, unlicensed victim from Springfield. And joining us on the phone is one of the organizers, Steve Allison. Good evening. Thanks for joining us here on Good Night.
Hey, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for asking me to be on.
Well, I think it's an honor to have you here on the program, and I just want to, before the interview takes place, that I think it's so great what you did and how you did it so quickly and such a quick turnaround to honor the Fallen Seven people. So tell people a little bit who maybe aren't aware of the situation, what really happened in your words.
Well, the 7 people that were killed, they were staying at a motel up there by Gorham, the Mount Jefferson View Hotel, or motel. Nice place. They were just leaving to go to the Gorham Legion Post for a charity function. And they got maybe 100 yards down the road, and the person that will remain nameless came in, more or less just plowed them right through them, killing 7 and injuring 3. And there were several other people with them that just witnessed this, that are just, the devastation was immense.
Now, I agree with you. We won't name him because we shouldn't name him. But he should have never been behind the wheel and never
Absolutely
been driving.
Nope.
And this was, even the governor of Massachusetts, Charlie Baker, has declared this is a total fail. This person should have never been on the road. This is a black mark on the RMV in the state of Massachusetts, and now we have 7 people dead and 3 other people injured. With the injuries of the 3 other, are they what type of injuries?
I don't know the extent of the other injuries. 2 of them were released, I think, the next day from the hospital. One is still in there. I don't know any of the details on them. A lot of it has been very downplayed. There was an interview with the two that were released, and what they've gone through and what they saw, and one of them is a combat Marine. And he said what he saw was far worse than anything he ever saw in combat.
So let's talk a little bit about, so after the incident, you and a couple other of your friends organized this event. Let's talk about how you guys organized the event.
Well, chatting on Facebook, I have a friend, Charlie Lord. He's my cohort in the beginning of this. He was in the hospital because he had a spider bite on his leg, and it got infected. And we were just talking, hey, when you get out, let's put together just a little ride, get 20, maybe 50 people, maybe on the outside 100 people, and just do a little ride, go up there, lay a wreath there, and do a little prayer session. He thought that's great, so I went and posted a post on Facebook that almost immediately went viral. I just put up there, Charlie and I are thinking about having a ride up there in memory of the Fallen Seven, and that's where I just came up with Fallen Seven.
So on Saturday, in the pouring rain, you had over 3,000 bikers show up, more than 4,000 people, right?
Over 3,000 motorcycles and over 4,500 people.
4,500 people, just from a Facebook post.
Just because I put one post out and it went viral. It went literally cross country in seconds, and people going, I want to be in on this. I want to be in. I want to help. What can I do? When are we going to do this?
So people from all over the country, from California to Florida, they all came and participated, correct?
Absolutely. In fact, the night before the ride, I was just going through Franconia, and that's because I was going up to Gorham to drop off some stuff for the memorial, and my phone rang, and it's a friend of mine from Wisconsin. Hello, and hey, Steve, guess where I am? And I said, I don't know. He said, Concord, New Hampshire, and he said, yeah. Without me even knowing, him and his son rode up from Wisconsin to go on this. They left the morning before.
So what was the mood of the participants in the ride? I mean, when you talk to people, what did they say to you?
Everybody was, before the ride, everybody was extremely excited. They thought this was such a wonderful thing. Right from the beginning, everybody wanted to be involved with this. They wanted to participate in it. They wanted to show their love and respect for the Fallen Seven. It was just the most amazing thing I saw when I got up to the Broken Spoke, where we were doing the central meeting point.
Mm-hmm.
And I pulled in, and I just about started crying right then and there. Just a sea of bikes and people, and lines of people waiting to buy the T-shirts that were made in memory of them, buying patches and stickers and all that. Just it was the most amazing thing I ever saw. I go on the Boston Women's Vet Ride every year.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of my musts that I go on. And it was the same kind of feeling, but a little different, because there was a little more reverence, a little more towards honor on this. It wasn't just a ride, to raise money for the Wounded Vets, which I think is a fantastic organization.
Oh, absolutely.
I can't say enough about them. I do that ride every year, and I love it. It's one of my musts that I have to do. It was just, there was something different about the feeling. It also had the same feeling like I just stepped into the world's largest family reunion.
Well, I'm glad to hear that it was positive, because
my
words, I'm angry about this. I mean,
yeah.
Did you sense any anger out of people?
Only if you brought up about the driver. Otherwise, everybody was being very they wanted to honor some of the victims. They didn't even want to think about the driver.
Good. Okay, that's
So it was very up mood. It was, everybody was there for a purpose and all that, but at the same time, it was kept very light. And like I said, it was like I just walked into the largest family reunion in the world. People I'd never met before coming up to me, shaking my hand, and giving me a hug, and I'm just trying to remember that I talked to these people. I don't know, but it almost felt like I knew every one of those people that was there all my life, even if I had just met them.
Well, let's talk about how you pulled this off so quickly, because not only did you put it up on Facebook and it went viral, but I mean, you must have had the buy-in from the New Hampshire State Police. You must have had the buy-in from the local police forces. So talk a little bit about that planning process.
That was the hard part, actually. The easy part was getting the people. The day after we even thought about doing this, we saw how big it was going to get. I contacted New Hampshire State Patrol and told them that what we had going. At that time, we thought we might have 300 people. They were fine with that. But it just kept on growing and growing. And this was a non-registered, you don't register to go on this. You don't pay anything to go on this. This is completely free. And just more and more people wanted to go. And after a while, it got to the point where the State Patrol said, we can't do this. And
because it was too big. Because it was getting too big.
It was too big.
Right.
And, well, about 10 seconds after the State Patrol had put out a press release about that, within an hour, they had the State House had 700 calls from people going, this has got to go on. And immediately the state reached back out to us and said, well, set up a meeting. And they did an amazing job. They said, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make this go on. No ifs, ands, buts. This ride's going to go on. They pulled out New Hampshire Department of Homeland Security, the State Patrol, the local police, DOT, the Emergency Operations Center, every single department they could to help out on this. And we worked out a whole new route that was going to work, that it was going to be the least disruptive. They just gave us every bit of help that we could ever imagine. They contacted every police department along the way, even from where all the little satellite meetup places were, that we had traffic control to get to the main meetup place. The state of New Hampshire opened up the emergency, oh my God, my mind's gone right now. The Emergency Operations Center for this ride, so they can monitor everything about this ride. It's the first time they've ever done anything like that for a ride.
Now, did you pull any permits or have to pay any permit fees or anything, or they did this all gratis?
None. Didn't have to do any of that.
Wow, I got to give a huge shout out to the legislature and the state police and all the local police. I mean, in New Hampshire, because there's probably 49 other states that would have said, no, you need a permit, you need this and that. So kudos to the state of New Hampshire. Yeah.
Yeah, they saw this was going to be something major and something really important, and they just absolutely bent over backwards to make this happen.
Boy, that is great. That is great.
It was phenomenal.
So this is going to be an annual event, I take it, going forward, I hope.
Right, but we are going to be doing it different from now on because we learned a lot on this one. It started off with me and Charlie just doing something, and then next thing you knew, I was going nuts. So I knew I have people volunteering to help, help get things organized and that. And I picked the most amazing team I could ever think of. Each person had a certain task to take care of. Somebody for logistics, one for police liaison, one for media liaison, just everything, and it just fell together just so perfectly. I can't think I don't even call them a team. I don't call them a staff. They're my family. Well, they're the ones that made this happen.
That is nice to hear, Steve. We're speaking with Steve Allison, one of the organizers of the Ride for the Fallen 7 up in New Hampshire, where over 3,000 bikers and over 4,500 participants came and honored the unfortunate death of the 7 riders. Talk to me a little bit, Steve, about the Jarheads Motorcycle Club. What do people need to know about the Jarheads Motorcycle Club?
Some of the nicest people I've ever met.
Really?
Straight out. When we approached them and we told them, well, what we were going to do, and if there was donations in that, how should we get them to them? And we had to go through chain of command, of course, like any MC. And they finally they threw their support behind us on that, and they gave us a lot of help. They just awesome people, and they led the ride for us. They came on board as a participant, but as the main benefactors of it too, and they were just wonderful people. Every one of them that I met treated me like if I was their own brother. They were.
Well, the biker community is a family community usually. If you're in the if you're a biker, you're in that type of family. But what it seems to have done is you've seemed to bring so many different families together about this. And I want to make sure that people can learn more about this. I mean, other than going to Steve Allison's Facebook page, is there a place that people can go to learn more, or more importantly, donate to the cause?
There is a place where you can donate straight to the Jarheads themselves. I have to find the address here, though. Pardon me. Give me a second here. There is a GoFundMe for the Jarheads where people can make donations to.
Okay.
And also we have an address. It'll take me a couple of seconds to find it.
Well, take your time.
Yeah, I gotta find it for something. Where are we going?
No, but I think it's just important, Steve, that people, have a way to help and they want to participate, because even as big as this story is, this story's far from over. There's going to be some follow-up on the Massachusetts legislature about how this happened. Like I said earlier, I'm angry about this. I know a lot of other people are angry about this. This is something that should not just be forgotten because you did one ride on, last Saturday. I want to, be able to keep this, so people can be able to participate. Were you able to find that link?
Well,
don't worry about it, because we'll find it and then we'll post it. We'll post it up as a link to the show and everything else. What else do people need to know? What else do people need?
If they go to our Facebook page, Ride for the Fallen 7, we have the links in there and the address where you can send a check directly to the Jarhead.
Okay.
That way, there's no fees paid out to GoFundMe or anything. All the money, 100% of the money goes right to them.
So 100% of the proceeds goes right to the organization.
If you send a check right to the address that we have listed, and that way you can also find their address on their website, which is I do believe jarheadsmc.com, and
mc.com. Okay.
They have a link right there for it.
All right, so we'll post all those links to this interview, and I'll send you this so you can send it out to your friends and followers as well, and we'll send that out. What else do people need to know? We only have got about a minute here left on Good Night. What else do people need to know, or how can they get involved?
The best way that they can get involved is if they keep an eye out on Facebook. When you see a tragedy happen, reach out and just ask, what can I do to help? That's one of the main things. What this entire ride did is brought the biker community, the veteran community, and the public together for awareness that when one is hurting, we are all hurting. That's where we want to go. Just reach out. Sometimes just reaching out and asking, is there anything I can do, can be one of the biggest things you can do to help ease pain, too.
Wow, Steve, that's a goosebump moment right there for you, because you know what? Nothing could be truer that's going to be said the rest of this week than that. Sometimes you just have to reach out to people and see what you can do to help. And you've made a big difference in the world. You and your group have made a big difference in the world, and we want to thank you for it.
I thank you for allowing me to be on here and say a few words, even though I do stutter.
You did great, Steve. We appreciate it. The Ride for the Fallen 7. Just go to Facebook, just search Ride for the Fallen 7, or go to jarheadsmc.com to learn more about it. Steve, Allison, thanks for taking a couple minutes, and more importantly, thanks for making a big difference in the world. And we appreciate you being here on Good Night.
And thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
All right, we'll talk soon. That's Steve Allison for the Ride for the Fallen 7. You're watching Good Night. We'll be back right after this. Thanks for joining us here on Good Night, and special thanks to Steve Allison of the Ride of the Fallen 7, and to Nick Fetherston for joining us here on What's Trending on Twitter. Also thanks to Lucy Burdge for her segment This Week in Music History. That's going to do it for us tonight. Join us here next Monday at 9 p.m. for another edition of Good Night.